Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Menstrual, the podcast. I'm your host Candice, and this is a series of conversations around the ebbs and flows of life and a safe space to discuss periods. We have another episode with another very special guest. We have Gemma, who is the founder of the Well Woman Project. Claps, cheers, in the most beautiful fuchsia get up.
Dopamine dressing 101.
Absolutely. And we can just go straight in.
Yeah.
Other natural dopamine things that you do.
Yeah. Well, getting outside with my dogs.
Yeah.
Which, having just duffed my knee 3 months ago, I haven't been able to do so much.
Yeah.
And I can definitely tell you that come this 3 months window, I'm like, they need to be outside.
Yeah.
Dressing, bit of makeup, colour, all of that stuff. Anything that makes you feel good. I think a lot of dopamine stuff is kind of getting back in touch with your inner child.
Absolutely.
And play and creativity, doing all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, dungarees are turns out the most comfortable thing to wear.
They are. They really are. But equally can be the most annoying thing to take off when you go to the toilet.
100%. They're not a thing to wear to a festival.
But equally, they kind of give festival vibes.
Yeah, they do.
So it's like a catch-22.
They do, absolutely. But they are not the thing to wear if you're needing to entertain a squad at all. It's just too much admin.
Too much to do. In my mind, I'm like, what isn't the other way to take off? How would dungarees be designed better for taking off with ease? Part of me feels like there should be like a small, maybe zip around the waist.
Or
that you kind of
crotch.
Oh, that would be great.
That would be the one.
Yeah.
But something comfy, so you don't want to sit
on it and then be uncomfortable. Yeah. Not ideal with a zip feet.
I've had exercise trousers that have had a zip in the back for keeping your keys.
Yeah.
And then I've worn them to yoga and lying on the floor thinking, I'm being stabbed in the back. Yeah, that's a badly placed zip.
No, not ideal. Really, really not ideal. But I think especially with spring on the horizon, doing some things that give you natural dopamine are really important. And I feel like as I've got older in my life, I'm really being a lot more mindful of those things and just how critical they are to just your overall well-being. For me, actually being with my godchildren, I feel like I've talked about them maybe every other episode by now, but being with any of my godchildren just feels like a natural, because hugging is a natural and releases natural endorphins.
Yeah, and oxytocin.
Yeah. So that feeling, and there's nothing that feels better for me than walking into somewhere and people are so excited to see you. Yeah. These little people are like, and it's like, So I hear you. All of that stuff is really, really important. I'm really glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And I'm very excited to get into it. So on the topic of inner child, what's your upbringing?
My upbringing. So I grew up in the seaside down in Dorset, and it's great. Everyone, when I said I was moving up to London, everyone's like, "Why?" It's just there's not a lot going on in places like that when you're a youngster. Yeah. I really wanted to get up to the big smoke and all of that from a really young age. I mean, you can tell I'm an outsider because I don't think anyone calls it the big smoke in this but you know what I mean. But my upbringing was loads of time outside. I was born in the 80s, so basically you just went off and did stuff. No one really minded what you got up to. So but I studied nursing and then I got out of there and came up to London and I like the anonymity of London. You can go anywhere, not everyone knows you. When growing up in a smaller community, everyone's in your business.
Everyone's in your business. I can imagine that. Yeah.
It was tricky. There's a lot of estrangement and stuff in my family.
Okay.
So I don't have any contact with my parents and stuff now. It's been a wild ride, I won't lie, the last 3 years navigating that. But it's the right thing. But it's another conversation that is shrouded in taboo-ness and like, oh God, you get one set of parents and you get this, and you know, there's like my choice not to have children as well. There's also a lot of those, but aren't you being selfish comments? And you're like, we have to do what's right for you.
Yes.
And yeah, those can be really hard decisions. And I don't think anyone arrives at those decisions lightheartedly.
Yes.
It'd be a lot of conscious thought about
Absolutely.
it. So I'm in a better, more peaceful place with it all. But I would say for anyone that's navigating that, like, hang on in there, it gets better. But it is a roller coaster. Yeah. It's a big dollop of grief, and yeah, that's tough to navigate. But yeah, hang on in there, it gets easier.
Yeah, and based on how you're dressed and how you like beam, I think there's definitely, you're the visual representation of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, I'd like to think so. Like, I think this helps. Like, I guess it's sort of maybe a bit of a cloak sometimes if you're feeling a bit funky. But I know if I put on like a hot pink jumper, you can't feel like...
Can't feel down.
You can't feel down.
You can't feel down. No way, you can't feel down.
Yeah.
Pink, green, orange, yellow, all of those colours.
Yeah, it's really important.
You can't feel down. Yeah.
To... You know, good music. I have a good power playlist as well, so some really good tunes on there.
Yeah.
So you feel like, I don't know, a movie sometimes, like we're walking through the theme tunes of my life.
No, I hear that. I really hear that.
Yeah.
I think that that piece around your parents, how has that maybe informed how you now show up in the world as an adult? What has that taught you about relationships or friendships or connection?
I mean, it has been like, I think I sometimes think to myself, God, I wish I'd known this sooner. But I don't think you can ever arrive at it until you're ready.
Yeah.
And there's something that happens in midlife. I absolutely can't abide the term midlife crisis, because I don't think it's that. I think it's like an awakening, an opening, a beginning almost. And there is a richness that arrives with delving in the vulnerability of difficult things. You need to be with the right people, because you know the last thing you need is someone who's got has a complex and chaotic upbringing is to be near anyone
whilst you're in the midst of all of that.
So definitely get a really good therapist on the go. Like, my therapist has been absolutely godsend. But there have been times that you have to peel. It's like having emotional sunburn. That's how I kind of liken it. You have to really peel back the layers when you don't really want to, and things are quite raw. But the reason it feels like that is because you have to take a big chunk of responsibility for stuff, like complex PTSD, which is, you know, people who've grown up in difficult childhoods and things like that. Like, all of us will have some, you know, level of stuff from our families. We can't not. They're such a big part of our experience. But when it's been like chaotic and, you know, things have been lacking and all of that kind of thing, it hampers your development. There's been so much learning of like, oh, that's why I do that, or that's why I think that, or that's why that's been difficult, or that's been easy, or I come at an angle that's really like left field or whatever. And I know a lot of people, you know, I've talked to a lot of people that have felt like perhaps they've got some sort of neurodiversity, and then it turns out it's actually trauma, you know, or I think the strands are very interwoven. I get many friends who are neurodivergent, and it's like, I get that. So, you know, we have a lot of similarities and things. So, but it's been like a huge source of shame, I would say, like because you don't know that you're living or coping with that kind of thing, and then it's like a Pandora's box. You open it and you're like, ugh. And then you have to start like dealing with it, because once you know, it's then your duty to yourself to unpick it and
deal with it,
take out the big mangled Christmas tree lights. That's the big knotted Christmas tree lights, and unpick that. And in doing so, I've strengthened so many relationships by literally just being honest and open. And it's changed the playing fields in many ways that I didn't anticipate. There's been like further culling, I suppose, of people that I don't want in my life.
Right.
And then there's been, you know, a bigger expanse of richness in relationships that I do want. And I think probably be like that for the rest of my life. You know, it's a forever learning curve. But it is wonderful to live in a less dysregulated body, because essentially you're healing your nervous system and helping yourself feel better. Which is it's fascinating. Like, it is a fascinating sort of experience. Hard, and like I say, there's been ups and downs and all sorts, but it is it's one that I'm glad I've walked. And it's really important to become your authentic self.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even how you just like journeyed through that was clear that it has been worth it. Like, going through all of the gunk has been worth it. And I know sometimes when we're faced with what we don't want to face, we can decide to just be like, okay, we're not going to do that today. It'll be like what we were talking about outside. Like, sometimes it's peace I'm choosing, and this is not peaceful. But actually leaning into that discomfort, there's often peace and like serenity and sincerity on the other side. So I even just want to commend you for just like journeying it for yourself.
Oh, thank you.
Like, and it's, especially as a woman, it's easy to just fall into the trap of like, do you know what, I'm just going to conform to how society should have me, or do what society would have. I've been almost socially conditioned to do, or behave, or think, or want. But actually taking the agency to make those choices for yourself in terms of facing your life head on and doing all of that work has got you to such a sincere place. And I think that's such a great journey to have gone on, man.
Yeah, you know, like when you know, like people like Brene Brown and stuff talk about vulnerability and things like that, and being in the arena. You think you know, and then you're in the arena, and then you're like,
okay,
oh my god,
blue corner is, and you're like, I didn't realise I was in. Wait, hold on, the lights are coming on. Who's on the other side?
It is. It's like nobody geared me up for this at all. But like I say, like building that community around you and having really solid people you can depend on, and talk about, and you know, lean into people who've experienced it themselves as well, so they're, you know, they could be further ahead than you, can be mentors to you to an extent, but just having that place where you can go, today has been a bin fire. You know, and they're like, I know, I get that. Without any need to have any context or explanation, it's just like, this is hard. And someone's like, it is. And tomorrow will be a different day. So hang on in there.
Absolutely. And I think that approach is really important. And especially when it comes to community, having people who will sit in the trenches, and also people that will pop the champagne. And like knowing the difference between like having that, and sometimes it's just having someone on the phone that just listens to what you're saying. And I had to learn that because I'm really solution oriented. So sometimes if someone brings me with a problem, my default is to help them solve the problem. But actually sometimes the problem is that they just haven't got it out yet. And the solution is a person on the other end. Like, not me saying, oh, actually, I think you should do X, or I think you should maybe consider Y. But sometimes it's just saying, I hear you, man. Like, I hear you. I hear you. Like, me and my friends sometimes will ask each other, how's the day going? And we'll be like, it's going. It's like, you got it. Like, you going. Okie dokie. Like, and then we just carry on talking about something else. But I do think there is such power in that community piece around having people in your network and circle who just can. One of the most special things for me is people who can hear the thing I didn't say. And like, I had that experience not long ago, and I actually but I chose to really thank my friend for doing that. Because it's sometimes you're grateful internally. But I think it's really important to tell people like those small nuances that only people that know you know to do.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, thank you so much for hearing the thing I didn't say. And she was like, you know what it is.
Yeah.
And I was just like, thanks.
Yeah.
I really needed that. I really, really needed that.
Yeah.
And in terms of community, the Well Woman Project is completely about supporting community. Tell us a little bit more about that, and also about your career trajectory that got you to that point.
So I've been in health for like over 20 years. I mean, it feels bonkers to say that. It doesn't feel like that long. But I started nursing. So I really wanted to get up to London. Mm-hmm. So nursing was a really like helpful way to do that. And I was a nurse for like 15 years. And in and amongst all of that, I was training in like massage therapy, Indian head therapy, reflexology, anything I could like find, basically. I was just sort of adding strings to my bow, and I would practice on my patients and my friends at work and things like that. I'd be like, do you want me to just give your feet a little rub or hands, things like that make people feel better. Like it's not just always going in and giving someone medication. Sometimes it's going in and listening to them and you like massaging their hand or whatever, or that kind of thing. So when I started my nursing, I met like the health professionals and all different like faculties, and sometimes I'd be like, my God, I don't think you should be here anymore. They were so frazzled and jaded and all the rest of it. So I promised myself, like, if I get like that, it's time to leave, because I cannot be serving the best to my ability if I feel like that. And I did start to feel like that. And I was like, I need to get out now, because I'm burnt out, basically. So my all the things that I've been doing up until that point, I walked into sort of a more holistic approach. And my first business, I worked as a doula and a hypnobirth practitioner and massage therapist, loads of body work and things like that. And I really loved it. I got a lot out of it. And then, I'd always had really ropey periods, very painful, heavy, go on the pill, the whole shebang of like, that's all we have to offer, just do that. So, that's what I did. And then I suffered with migraines, so I couldn't be on the pen anymore, so I had to come off of it. And that's when like the wheels and stuff started to sort of really come off for me. And I was getting loads of pain. I was in and out of A&E, lots with, just really horrific pain. I was told I had kidney stones, irritable bowel, all of this. And I collapsed out in places, it was all very dramatic, but this kept happening, but no one, and I would say, I have really bad painful periods. Nothing was ever done with that information. Anyway, long story short, eventually I presented in A&E again, and I was like, there's something really not right here. This has been several times. So eventually I got a scan, and I found I had a really large ovarian cyst, which is about the size of a melon. Oh, wow. And so I had to have that removed because it was like twisting and everything. And in doing that, I found out I had endometriosis. And then my consultant in her wisdom was just like, right, well, we'll just chop that ovary off because you don't want children. And I was like, no, I'd like to keep that ovary.
Despite my choice. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly that. I'm like, ovaries do more than just having kids. Right? They're really key. That's why you have two.
Yes.
So I'd really like it if you could save it. So she did. It meant I had longer surgery, but she did. And then I had a letter to say that they had actually removed it. And I was like, oh my God, like, that is the case. Yeah, this is not good. Yeah, exactly. So I rang them. They were like, no, we've definitely kept it. And then I had another letter to say, no, we've removed it. So I'm like, I want a scan.
Yeah, let's get this on the screen.
I want to see with both eyes that I have two ovaries. And in doing that, I did have both ovaries, thankfully, but I also then found out I had adenomyosis. Oh, wow. So all of the picture became clear for me as to what was going on. And they were like, right, you need to be on you know, synthetic hormones, and I'm like, I can't take them, like, because I have migraines. And she's like, well, then just take the progesterone only. And I'm like, well, I can't actually have that because that gives me headaches. She's like, well, you're very sensitive. I'm like,
you know what it is? It's my body.
Yeah, it's my body telling me what it wants and what it doesn't want.
What to tell you?
Yeah, exactly. So she was just like, well, listen, if you don't do what I'm saying to you, you're going to be back here begging for a hysterectomy in 10 years. It's been 10 years. I haven't had a hysterectomy.
Yeah, and you've not begged her either.
Yeah, and things are still, like, they're in remission, you know, like, I obviously still have endo and adeno, but they don't cause me grief anymore.
I love that.
They haven't progressed anymore.
That's good.
That's really good. I've done that, you know, holistically.
Yeah.
And I was like, crikey, I was furious because I'm like, why didn't I know all this stuff? You know, why didn't I have all this knowledge at my fingertips before?
Yeah.
You know, way back when. I read Lisa Lister's book, Code Red.
Oh, I need to get that.
And that was like really illuminating for me. And then that's literally how the Well Woman Project was formed. I, you know, in amongst all of this, I trained in herbology. I've done my mindfulness practitioners training. Learned a lot about, you know, the effects of stress on the body and all of that kind of thing. So I started working with women to help them find a way through it. You know, as a woman and a feminist, and, you know, all of that, it's very conflicting sometimes to say I'm not sure how I feel about synthetic hormones and HRT, but I just think sometimes it's always shrouded as this like panacea.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it isn't. You know, bodies are really complex. It is there as a choice.
Yeah.
We need to have informed choice.
Yes.
So we know what we're getting involved in.
Yeah.
And then that's the best that we can hope for, really.
Yeah.
You know, and I just don't think women are given informed choice. They're just told this is
given
all that you can have.
Yeah. Not even an option. It's kind of like, this is it. This is the solution. The end. There's no other alternatives.
No, and you know, you can't deny that nutrition plays a part, exercise plays a part, our mental health, you know, like rest, how we dress, you know, all of that stuff.
All these things.
All of those things are so fundamental to our health and well-being. You know, as not to say, well, just wear bright clothes and you're not going to have any painful periods, you know. Like,
we put on each other.
You know, like,
don't take the pain away.
Like, wouldn't it be amazing if that was the case? But there's elements of that, and you know, I just see it time and time again with my patients that you know, we tweak things, we shift stuff around, we change diets, we you know, make small incremental shifts and things start to get better.
Yes.
You know, and I've worked with women who have endo and adeno, and you know, they're like, this is the first time I've had pain-free periods. And I'm like, it is possible.
Yeah.
It's not a like a unicorn kind of thing. Periods aren't meant to be painful, actually. Like, pain is always a communication in the body to say something's not right. You know, you wouldn't carry on lifting something if your back was hurting. You know, you would rest and seek help and whatever else. And periods aren't any different than that. Of course, we feel something, like, you know,
because of what the anatomy of what's happening.
Yeah, sure. But it shouldn't be, you know, making us need to take over-the-counter medication every month. It shouldn't be stopping us from doing our activities of daily living, like work, school, getting around, having a social life. Like, that's not on. And again, like, having been out of circulation for the last 3 months with my knee, I can tell you that not having access to those things is really not good for you. You know, not being able to get out and exercise, not being able to get out and, you know, get to social events and whatnot for because of your health, like, it chips away at your reserves and you know, you can start to feel like you're fading away in the background of your own life. And you know, that is definitely something I've heard from a lot of people that I work with and talk to, that, you know, pain, all right, it might not be there all the time, and sometimes it is there all the time for some people, but it chips away at your resilience and you become tired. Like, pain is tiring.
It is.
It is tiring. You know, it just drains you of all energy, and you're just not your sparkly, super wonderful self that you could be if you're having to navigate that all the time.
Absolutely.
And I just don't think it's taken seriously enough, actually. Because it's so normalised in our culture and our society for it to be painful. So if you could say, well, yeah, I've got painful periods, everyone's like,
yeah. If you said, oh, do you know what, I get a really bad headache every month, people would say, you should probably see someone about that. You shouldn't be getting like a really bad headache every month, just unrelated. And I think what you've mentioned about the holistic approach to remission is really important. Could you share just a few things that you've been able to do with, even in your own body, and implement with other women that you work with that have helped with that?
So the key part of unwinding stuff in the body is working with inflammation. Bodies that have inflammation tend to be unwell, you know, and inflammation is like, again, it's kind of a marker. You know, if we cut ourselves or whatever, you get inflammation there. It stops us moving through the pain. You know, it helps us protect that. You know, if you sprained your ankle or cut yourself, whatever, but you protect that part of your body because it gets hot, it gets painful, and you know not to do anything with it until it heals. With like period stuff and endo and things like that, it is a naturally inflammatory event anyway, because of like the prostaglandins and things that are released. So when you're working with someone who has conditions like endo and adeno, or you know, heavy painful periods without anything else, you're looking at someone who is inflamed, and you want to look at ways in which you can reverse that, and a lot of that is done through like the digestion, like working with the liver to make sure that that is working smoothly, and you're supporting it in a way that it allows, because it's a big filter, like it's wanting to get rid of all the excess toxins and things that naturally occur in our body. You want that out of your system, you don't want it staying in. So you want to make sure your gut is working properly and expelling all of the waste out of our body and things like that. So looking at diet and like exercise and, you know, all of the things that we know is important, but I take it each person is same but different. So I've always been really conscious of not saying, oh, these are the 5 things that will definitely work, because I don't think that's any different from saying these are the 5 drugs or these are the 5 like exercises on anything. There's nothing that will always work for everybody.
No shoes.
But anything that you can do to reverse that, so you know, looking at sleep, stress, pulling out like commercial period products and things, so looking at using reusable products or organic cottons and things like that, so you know, you're just reducing the amount of toxins that you're putting in or near your body. So you know, we do a whole audit on personal products, household products. I'm a huge fan of being like, right, the things you need to clean your house with: white vinegar, bicarb, and citric acid. That will get everything clean. Everything else go in the bin, because it is just toxic to us. Like, we don't need.
It's really like, all encompassing, really.
Yes, it is. It is. It's like a Pandora's box. When I work with people, I'm like, right, just no, you don't have to do this all in one go. Like, there's not a 500-ton shovel needed here. It's like increments. We do little bits at a time.
Bit by bit.
And because, you know, also it costs money. You know, it's great to be like, eating a totally organic diet, but you're like, well,
expensive.
And you're earning 5k a month.
Must you
because that's going to be costing you about 4k, you know, literally, just to get it. So it's like making the best choices. There's things like, you can look this up every year, they change it, but they'll do like the dirty dozen and the clean 15. So your fruit and veg that are more likely to have high amounts of pesticides and things used on them. Usually it's like soft fruits and things like that. So, you know, if you can avoid those or grow them yourself, brilliant. But if you do want to eat them, peel them, or soak them in bicarb and vinegar for 15 minutes in the sink and allow all of that residue to come off, and then carry on. And then the Clean 15 will give you the best fruit and vegetables that have less amounts of pesticides and things like that, so you don't have to worry so much about buying organic. Because those kind of things make a huge difference. Like the Think Dirty app is really good for
yes, I've seen that.
I've
seen that. You can scan barcodes.
Yes, and because like things, shampoo, whatever, body wash or whatever, it will have like fragrance in it, and fragrance has got like could anywhere up to about 4,000 different chemicals in it just to make something smell nice. Because if you didn't put that in, it would be gross. So soap, just using like a really basic handmade soap or something, like, and like I say to people, that's where you can get the joy of like investing in something that's really lovely. It will last you a long time and is better for you. So from the moment we're born, we've just got all of those things. We can't help those things coming into our bodies, and also stuff with the like microplastics and all of that kind of thing. Our environment is difficult to navigate sometimes, but just doing what you can with what you have, and like I talk about a lot of that in my book and things. Have a reference point that you can come back to just chip away at it, and that can make a huge difference. Personally, for me, I've knocked gluten on the head.
I would like to be able to get that.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll be honest with you, it's pancake day today.
I know.
It's like,
I am such a breadie. Like, it was my staple as a kid, and I must say it's come a long way to what it was. Like when I first started nursing, it was literally a brick. Like someone would be like, "So this is the gluten-free brick," and you'd like, you have to like lift it up.
It's not. It doesn't. I mean, the gluten makes it taste nice, but ultimately, like, what's the offset cost for your body?
Exactly. So I noticed that gluten was a real trigger for me, in terms of just exacerbating my symptoms and stuff. And I've just, I call it like the cha-cha-cha of healing. There's steps forward, backwards, and sometimes sideways. And
a good way to put it.
Like none of it is, I don't ever expect perfection from people. I now eat a very clean gluten-free diet, but when I started out, I wasn't. I would eat no bread, and then I'd bail and have a cake or something. Like those falls are important because they show you that actually they're not eating it is better for you. And eventually you just think, I'm just not going to.
You just wean yourself off and knock it on the head.
Exactly. I don't drink anymore. I mean, on paper, I look very boring, but I am still good at parties, I just can't eat any of the parties, but, I am good at parties. I'll still dance and have a great time. But about 5 years ago, and the same kind of thing, I just thought, this isn't serving me. I just feel awful after having had a couple of glasses of wine. And taking 2 days to then get over it, I'm just not anymore. And I've not looked back and thought, I fancy that.
That's good.
So when you're ready, it can be relatively easy to just jump on board. But there was a lot of toing and froing in and amongst all of that. So those kind of things have worked for me, and they've really I've really cleaned things out, and that has helped, along with using herbs and practicing meditation and exercise and all of those things. But it's finding what's right for you. I think that's really important. Like if you really despise yoga, I wouldn't say do yoga. Stretch, but don't go to a class where you feel like it's not your jam.
Not your jam.
Go and take a mat and just stretch your body. Just move it however feels good. Down the park or in your home or whatever else. There's
important. And anything worth doing, I've learned, is that anything worth doing is worth doing consistently.
Yes.
and continually. So if you don't like yoga or boxing or HIIT or running, what's the point?
Exactly.
As much as it's got health benefits, it doesn't really, because you're not fully invested in it. So I definitely agree with you on that. Can you remember when you started your period and what your first period was like?
Yes, I can. So I was 14 when I started. It was quite late. I remember distinctly having a conversation with my friend as I was leaving school, saying, I'm a woman now.
Much to your dismay, what was around the corner?
I know. I felt so chuffed, and now I'm just like, oh, you poor girl. And she laughed at me and was like, yeah, whatever. And we had a dog at home, and she came into season the same time. Like, we obviously synced up.
No way.
Yeah. So I had my mum being the way she was, I told her, and it was all really embarrassing and not really very supportive. So do you remember like Kotex sanitary towels?
That is literally like this big
pillow. Yeah. Do you remember, like, if you started running with one of those on, they only had like a thin strip that stuck into your pants. It felt like it was going to navigate itself out of your top of your trousers or something.
It's not secure at all. Pants with no wings. We have to talk about it, because I just think, why? What?
They were horrific. Like, honest to God, they were so bad. And you just felt like you were sat on like a breeze block, and they just all scrumpled up. Like, it was the risk of leak and all the rest of it was just horrific. It wasn't the one. I just remember being sat in next to my dog and being like, I hope your belly's not hurting as much as mine.
That's so funny.
Me and her had a moment like in the kitchen. She was relegated out there, and I felt very much the same. Sort of a bit like, oh God, it's not that admin, for everyone else. But I'm really like, I don't have children through choice, but any of my kids friends' kids that have started their periods, like, I'm really champion them and get them a little stuff and bits and bobs together, and they're always mortified. Oh God, no. I'm like, no, go on. Here we are. It's like, you've got to celebrate this. It's like, get to know yourself and all the rest of it. So I think that it's but it was horrible. It was horrible. I just remember it being very painful, heavy, like right from the start. So it wasn't a great experience, but I do remember that. I'm a woman now.
That feeling of like, I've come into myself. As I said, needless to say, what was going to be ahead? My goodness. And in terms of your book, you're a published author, which is very exciting. Tell me about the book.
So it's been out about 18 months now. It's called Periods Aren't Meant to Bloody Hurt. There it is. I feel like I've dressed like the book today.
You kind of have.
So it was a labour of love. Writing a book is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. But it was so important for me to put all my knowledge down somewhere and share the process. So when I nursed, I was always really I advocated for people, and I always wanted people to have informed choice. Like, those are two things I'm really, really passionate about. So I wanted to include things that would help people to have a better understanding, not in like medical terms or in everyday life. Because the amount of times doctors would waltz in and be all like, the phalange and the blah 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 is this, that, and the other, and I'm like, so you've got a broken arm?
Let's just make it like, just keep it simple. You're speaking to a lay person, they don't know what that means. It's just your elbow, the arm, the knee, the foot.
Exactly. So hormones as well, it's so that, like, the endocrine system as a whole fascinates me. And we're a big bag of hormones, and when we talk about periods and hormones, we always think estrogen, progesterone, like luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. They're the ones. And we forget all the other stuff like testosterone, for example, but also your adrenaline, your cortisol, your insulin, stuff that's going on in your thyroid, all of that. So I've broken all of that down, which is really dry. So I try and make things slightly more enjoyable and easy to read, because those hormones affect our period hormones. You know, that is all, it's all interconnected.
Yes.
Any of you guys out there who would get the hangries? I was an ex-hangry person. Like, this is another significant marker for having wonky periods, because it means your insulin, you're sensitive to it. You're probably eating in a way that serves your body, and those peaks and troughs and the fact that you get hangry and stuff is a precursor to that sensitivity. So it's telling you something. I mean, everyone used to laugh at me and be like, have you got snacks? But it's information. So all of those kind of nuances and things are in there, and how to talk to your doctor, and, you know, questions to ask and things like that. So it's a way of like championing women and those that have periods to be able to navigate that with some sense of control, because there is a huge thing of like white coat syndrome. You go into doctor surgery, you suddenly lose all your power. Like as a woman, as a black woman as well, that has, you know, significant impacts on things. You know, you're not believed in your pain, the significance of what you're experiencing, all of that has been quite well documented, which is something, because it's not often documented at all.
For sure.
But having that in your back pocket to be able to go in and have some sort of confidence
and agency.
With talking to a health professional, to actually know that they don't have all the answers, and a good health professional will listen to you and say, I didn't know that. Okay, let's look it up, and or you know, let's try this out, or whatever else. That is really important, because if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times when I work with people and they're like, thank you for just hearing me. You know, thank you for letting me say my story and hearing me and saying, there's things we can do about this. And so that gives, you know, people a workbook to work from, basically, because there's just not, I mean, we're overloaded with information, but also is where you get your information. It's good to have a source that you trust, and, you know, someone who knows what they're talking about. And that's it. It's my life's work in there.
I love that.
That's, you know, is a manual. That's how I want it. You can dip in and out, read it through, you know, mark stuff, doodle in it, whatever you need, just to make sure it works for you. You know, take what you want, leave the rest, kind of thing. But also as a way of learning about your body, because we don't get taught it properly. It's like totally skimmed over. I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but certainly when I was learning biology, and even the fact that it's called sex education, it's like all lumped into fertility.
It's not the same.
No,
it's just
that's
not
a different
the same.
conversation.
It's completely different. It's not the same. It's so frustrating.
It is, and it's always like how they explain, you know, what our hormones do and what our period's about is always in context of having kids. And you're like, you know, if you don't ovulate, you don't produce progesterone, and that in itself is problematic, because you need both. Like, regardless of whether you're going to have kids
or not,
you know, because you're going to ovulate every month. You're not going to have kids. You're not going to be having kids every month, right? Like, so it's really important that you ovulate properly. And, you know, so many times I've heard people say to me, my doctor was like, well, it's great you don't have periods. And you're like, no, it isn't.
Not. It's a concern.
It's really
By the way,
important.
I'd be like, where's the white flag?
Hello.
Someone get me out of it. I'm a patient, get me out of it.
Exactly. But that's the problem. Like, because we see periods as being that, if you don't have them, then great. Like, you don't have to deal with it. You're like, well, actually, your body's not functioning properly.
Absolutely.
And it's not getting all the hormones it needs. And that is a problem.
That's the issue.
And we want to get, you know, a handle on that. And whether that, you know, you remedy that through holistic or allopathic medicine matters not. You need to get addressed. That's the first and foremost. It needs to be diagnosed, and it needs to be addressed. And, you know, I'm that's what I champion people about, is just trying to get that and like just don't give up. I know it can feel exhausting and like you bang your head against a brick wall, but eventually you'll get where you need to be. And you know, I help people get there. Essentially,
I absolutely love that. And in closing, which feels like, oh my gosh, I can't believe there's so much more I want to talk about. I want to talk about. What would you tell? I would say younger self, but the girl who's maybe 25.
Yeah,
she's got heavy periods but doesn't really know what to do. What would you tell her to do? And what kind of affirmation would you give her about herself? Because there's also this element of shame and self-shame that comes when you've got heavy periods, or something in your body that you feel like is abnormal makes you detach from society, groups, the way that you see yourself, all these types of things. So if you could share an affirmation for her, but also some practical steps that have helped you and what you've shared in your book.
Well, one, buy my book.
Number one. Let's get that off the table.
Get the manual. Really educate yourself. Like at 25, I was completely uneducated about my body, my choices. I mean, I love that. There's one thing I love about social media and conversations that younger women are having, is in and around that. And I have young women in my life, my nieces, and I'm forever talking to them about that. And you know, so like, find your people. If someone screws their face up when you mention the word period, they're not your people. They're the ones who are carrying an awful lot of shame. You want to be the ones who are like, oh my god, me too.
And last so refreshing when that happened. I remember I was actually on a brand call once, and I was speaking to a brand about the Gynae project, and I said, oh yeah, blah blah blah. Suddenly I was going through that normal spiel. She said, oh my gosh, you'll never guess what. And then she went into telling me about what her condition was and what her process has been. I was like, I've never met this woman in my life. This is also like a professional conversation. But I realised in that moment, you're my people. Like, you're a brand that's going to get it. Like, I don't have to bang down your door to like build a relationship here. You understand it straight off the rip. So I definitely agree with that.
And like the same with when you're approaching like healthcare professionals. If you don't like them, go somewhere else. Like until you do. Until you find that person that like listens and says, like we're going to do this. So I guess that my affirmation would be kind of like, trust yourself, don't give up. And, you know, I think for women's health, it's so, it's put outside of ourselves instead of, you know, a little bit like the work that I've done myself with, you know, all my personal stuff, my family. Like, you have to lean in to the difficulty. And if you can lean in and listen to what your body is telling you, even if it's the pain and the heaviness, and like, get geeky with that, chart it, understand it, like, become the expert of your body.
That is so powerful.
That would be the affirmation. Become the expert of your body. Because if you know yourself inside out and back to front, when you go to a healthcare provider and you're like, right, this is what's been going on for me, and this is what's happened in the last 6 months, you know, here is that, this is that, they will take you seriously because they're like,
okay, this woman knows. I've had that. I had that once. I went to a gynae and she kind of, initially she spoke down to me a little bit because I think she thought I was younger than I was. And then because I've been through the system a little while now, and I've kind of had a couple of tests, couple of blood tests, couple of scans, so now I'm kind of getting a bit more seasoned in what's going on. And she kind of spoke to me like I was like a little child, and I was like, so basically this is what's happening with it. And then she was like, oh wow, you really know what you're talking about? I was like, and then she's like, okay. So she went on the laptop and like figured it all out. But I definitely think there is something really powerful about taking your health into your own hands and taking that agency for yourself and authority and accountability for what's going on in your body. I think especially as a world, I think we always look for someone to blame. Like it's always someone else's fault. But actually, like what you said about your family, like when you face your facts, it's now down to you. And I think that what you mentioned about being the expert of your own body is exactly that. Like facing your facts and then being your expert, which is empowering.
It is. Like when I go in to see my doctors about stuff, I'm like, so I want blood tests for this, 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 and this. Like I'd like a scan for this, just to check this is going on. Like I just rattle it. And then like, who are you? I'm like,
I'm Gemma.
like my cake's flapping and that. Because you present yourself in a different way, they listen in a different way.
Yeah.
And like, this person knows what they're talking about. And believe me, like, you know, I work with people with chronic conditions like cystic fibrosis and stuff. They were the experts. They were the ones who's gone away and done all the reading, all the research. Like, they could cite papers that we had never even seen, you know, because they've gone into it to the nth degree. That's when you sort of get respect. I mean, I hate to say that, but like,
it's a real thing, though.
It is. Like, if you know yourself so well, like, you just command the respect that you want and that your body deserves.
Absolutely.
Because sadly, there's just no time for people to do that for you in the health service that we have at the moment. So if you can give yourself a really good head start, then it makes a humongous difference.
Massive difference.
Yeah.
Massive difference. But if people want to like tap into your services and tap into what you do, please plug everything, where they can buy the book, where they can follow Well Woman, all the things.
So you can buy my book anywhere. You can buy books online. If you buy it, please leave a review. I always love that. Yeah, they are. And thewellwomanproject.com is my website. I'm on Instagram as Well Woman Project. Facebook, I'm on Well Woman Project. Just tap that in and you will find me. And I'm floating around. I'm trying to get involved in LinkedIn and TikTok, but you can only do so much at one time.
As we were saying before, it is actually just crazy. It's a lot.
But really, Instagram, really that's where I hang out mostly. And please do just drop in my DMs. I'm always happy to chat with people and point them in the right direction. So it's just like, and please, there's never any TMI. Like,
in this world, there's nothing. If this is how we're coming in, like, there's no information, is too much information.
No, exactly.
Talking about periods, it's really a free for all.
I mean, frankly, I've had every bodily fluid all over me at some point or other anyway, so I'm very well seasoned. There's nothing that like scares me anymore. So on that front, there's nothing you can say that would be.
I love that. I love
a shocker.
I love that. And actually, at the end of every episode, I ask a guest that they've got a chance to ask me a question.
Okay.
So you can ask me anything about anything. Whether it's about the Gynae Project, my life, anything. So is there anything you would like to ask me?
Well, I would say, how did you like come about getting the Gynae Project started?
So I had, like many women working in women's health space, my own problems, and my own questions and my own concerns about my period. After travelling through a 6-year journey of like initial conversation with my GP, who was a really big advocate, and I always say that because I think for so many women that hasn't been their story. And yes, she was female, which helped, but I don't always think it does.
No.
My doctor was such an advocate, and she was like, right, okay, let's do this, let's do that, similar to what you mentioned, just really wanted to get me going to figure out what was wrong. But when I eventually had a procedure 6 years later to remove fibroids, polyps and cysts, my period got worse, which was like just catastrophic. I was so disappointed. I thought I've gone through all this to only to be no better off. And then I thought, all right, cool, I've gone the medical route, so what happens now? And similar to your holistic approach, I did the same. So I thought about, all right, cool, what can I do that I have control over that could help my general vitality, which in turn should help my period. So I started to dial into exercise. I actually grew up as a dancer. So I've always been like moving my body. And interestingly, my period has always been, I'd even go as far as saying quite treacherous. But like, I stopped dancing consistently when I was 25. And then I didn't dance again, like consistent. I haven't danced again consistently since. And when I remember getting to like 27, 28 and feeling like, oh, my period feels a lot more painful these days. Why is that? And I was literally going back through my life and thinking about what has changed in my life. And I realised I'm not moving as much. I'm not moving as consistently. So I kind of went back to training, not to performing as such, but just went back to training, went back to the gym, all of that kind of stuff, which has helped. And then when I thought about where have I found the most solace in my life, where have I found answers for questions I don't have, or just like a place of refuge, it's been community. And then when I connected those dots of like community has helped, movement has helped, and like having conversations has helped. I was like, okay, the Gynae project really should be an intersection of those things, at least initially. So like building community around having conversations and the impact that lifestyle has on your menstrual cycle, especially because the wait to see a gynae is over 700,000 people. So at the moment, you'll be 700,001. And I don't know how long you want to wait, but that's what we're looking at. If you've got 20 years, all right. So like for me, it was about designing the Gynae project, at least at this stage, to be a trusted resource of what can women do whilst they're waiting for an appointment. We don't have that function yet of like how we can quicken that, because that really is like part of the bigger mission. But right now it was about having conversations, taking away some stigma, taking away the taboo, inviting all to the conversation, and creating experiences that help women understand there are actually things that they can do in their normal life that help their menstrual cycle. So the launch for the Gynae project was a spin class called On Your Cycle, and that was a way to present that actually movement helps your menstrual cycle. And then the other events that are kind of in the pipeline also have a lifestyle element attached. So I think that wasn't in short, that was like a long story, but that's how Gynae got started. It was really about bridging that intersection of community and conversation and lifestyle, like a little G.
Yeah, love that.
Love that.
Oh, I'm so glad we went to that.
Oh my goodness, that was so good that we went to that talk. And we were sat next to each other again, proximity as well. Because had you been sat at the front, we might not have spoken. No. Because we were literally, I was here, and then Dr. Israel was here, and then you were next to her. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Israel was like, you have to speak to my friend.
And she said to me, next to me. Yes, a shout out Israel. I love her. I literally love her. But thank you so much for coming.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great.
Oh, honestly, thank you guys for listening. As you know, subscribe, like, share, all the things. And I'll add all of Gemma's information in the show notes. But it's been another great episode, and I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.